Section 1 of the Fables of Pilpay. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by April Mendes. The Fables of Pilpay by Anonymous. Translated by Abdullah ibn al-Muqaffa and Joseph Harris. Preface. The Fables of Pilpay, or Pilpay to use the form nearest the Arabic, have enjoyed a remarkable reputation in the East, and from time to time have been translated into Western languages. In the record of books which have had a wide circulation, we are apt to think only of those which have been produced in or accepted by Christianity and Western civilization. And yet, with the exception of the Bible, there is probably no work, we are told, that has been translated into so many languages and at so early an epoch as the collection of tales which passes by the title of the Fables of Pilpay, or Pilpay. The earliest form in which they appear is in the Panchatantra and Hitopadesha of the Sanskrit. Either from these or some antecedent form, the fables were translated into the now extinct Pelvi language and thence into the Arabic. The story of the first translation is that the Borzoi, an eminent physician at the court of the Persian king Nushirwan, who reigned between AD 531 and 579, visited India in search of a plant which had been reported to possess the power of restoring dead bodies to life. Like similar wild goose chases recorded in history and fable, he came back without the drug, but with this collection of fables. Another version makes him to have been sent on purpose for this book, which was jealously guarded by its Indian possessors, and to have obtained it only by surreptitious means. 2 centuries later, the first Arabic version was made by a Persian named Ruzbeh, who was converted to Mohammedanism and took the name Abdullah ibn al-Muqaffa. His translation of these fables is in the East usually called the Book of Kalilah and Dimna, from the names of 2 jackals who act a conspicuous part in the first story. This Arabic version is the parent of all successive ones. There was a Greek one by Simeon, son of Seth, at the close of the 11th century, and a Hebrew one made by Rabbi Joel, a learned Jew, probably a native of Spain, during the 12th century. There were translations also into Syriac, Turkish, Afghan, Malay, Mongol, and Latin. Of modern European languages, the German, 1483, seems to have been the earliest to receive it, followed by the Spanish, 1498, the English, 1570, the Danish, 1618, the Dutch, 1623, the Swedish, 1743. The Arabic version was edited by Baron de Sacy, Paris, 1816, and his edition is the basis of later translations. The English one by Wyndham Knatchbull was issued in 1819, and that from which the present American edition is copied was issued without translator's name in 1818. La Fontaine acknowledged his indebtedness to the work, and some 18 of his fables may be traced direct to Pilpay. It was probably from the English version of 1570 that Beaumont and Fletcher derived the story of the Dervice and the Thief, which appears in the tragic comedy of Women Pleased. Massinger also makes the same story serve in The Guardian. A recent interesting essay by Professor Taylor Lewis in Putnam's Magazine, July 1868, calls attention to the fables, and we copy from this a discriminating passage on the characteristics of these fables as distinct from other stories, and on the variations which appears in them under differing conditions. The difference between this and all other collections of fables, ancient or modern, is very striking. There are the same leading animal characters, the lion, the eagle, the bear, etc., with the difference that the jackal takes the place of the fox, and that there are introduced more of the smaller species. There are also the same animal traits, showing great acuteness and fixedness of zoological observation from the earliest times. But instead of being brief apologues with a single event and one brief moral deduced, like the Greek fables of Aesop or the Arabian of Lockman, they are long, continued histories involving a great variety of events, having each their social or political aspects forming a narration highly interesting in itself, exhibiting sometimes the most exquisite moral, and yet with rare ingenuity preserving the peculiar characteristics of each species. Thus, for example, in the principal story of King Lion and his friend the Bull, who are set at variance by the unprincipled jackal, the lion is alarmed at hearing for the first time the bull's deep bellow, so different from his own hoarse roar. He is not afraid, not he, but then there is something mysterious about it, and prudence is a virtue. And so again, the generous monarch resists the efforts of the crafty calumniator by representing the difference of their habits, the one eating flesh and the other grass, as taking away all ground of rivalry in their intercourse. Sometimes, indeed, the philosopher seems to forget himself. The peculiar animal traits are lost sight of, and they are simply men talking, wisely or absurdly, in animal forms. But in general, the dramatic proprieties are well observed. This, we think, will be seen in the one which we venture here to translate. The actors are taken from the least powerful of the animal tribes, and this is essential to the dramatic design, which is to show how the varied adaptation of different gifts, even of the smallest kind, builds up a secure society for the weak, inspiring mutual confidence and giving mutual help even against the most powerful foes. Granting them speech and a measure of reason adopted to their state, everything else is in accordance with their animal ways and instincts, whilst the whole presents a picture of quiet friendship, of charming constancy, of tender mutual regard, from which our lordly race may derive a lesson of practical wisdom not to be despised. The pervading moral, "Love is strength," is one that appears in the aphorisms and in the songs of Scripture. See Proverbs chapter 30, verses 24 through 28, Canticles chapter 8, verse 7. In this introductory notice, we would only further advert to one feature pervading the collection, and furnishing internal evidence not only of the antiquity, but of the wide influence of these fables in the East, as shown even in the modifications they have received. The various versions, although presenting substantially the same events and in great part the same unbroken narration, do yet show differences arising from the peculiar coloring that religious ideas have assumed in different lands, and as they have passed through successive ages. Some pious animal, such as a devout jackal, a very virtuous lion, in one place a very pious cat, and in another a very hypocritical one, who makes religion a cloak for her atrocities, is quite a favorite personification. This recluse character has, in the original Panchatantra or Indian legend, quite an ascetic aspect, is very quietistic, eats no flesh, in other words, shows the predominance of the Brahmanic and Buddhist ideas. In the Persian, anti-Islamic, it has more of the Magian look. In the Arabic, the pious fox, etc., is an orthodox Mohammedan, a nasik or extraordinary devotee, who is ever attentive to the call of the muezzin, says extra prayers, quotes the Quran, and makes extra pilgrimages to Mecca. In the Greek version of Simeon Seth, on the other hand, he has become a decided monk or hermit. To accommodate him, ablutions are turned into penance, and sometimes the translator renders Arabic phrases by literal quotations from the scriptures. Not content with this, Simeon Seth sometimes makes all the animals talk Homerically, and parodies in this way entire hexameters from the Iliad or the Odyssey. End of section 1.